Hello, everyone. Today we will talk about how to heal our past and create a future to be exactly how we want it to be. All of us who are actively working on ourselves know that the all that exists is the present moment. Practically speaking, there is no past nor the future, and yet the past and the future are constantly what are talked about. We are constantly reminded that what has happened in the past reflects on the present moment, and what happens in the now will have an impact on the future. The thing is, everything that has ever happened is happening right now, and everything that is about to happen is actually happening in the present moment. I know this is not easy to understand, and yet imagine everything, all the happenings, all our past lives, everything our ancestors had ever experienced. Metaphorically speaking, imagine it all as a stable foundation of a building with a deep basement, and everything that happened in the past is stored in the basement of the foundation. And then the building starts to get built. And this building will be under construction in our life as long as our consciousness is growing. And every floor of this building is a step closer to reaching higher levels of consciousness. I imagine all my past, since I was a playful and joyful, yet unconscious child, stored in this basement. My school years are the ground and the first floor. In such a way, we gain more awareness and consciousness of who we are, and we build this building floor by floor. However, that which is happening in the basement and in the foundation is still happening. Even though we're not thinking of it and we're not aware of it, it doesn't mean it has ceased to happen. Just because our consciousness is on a higher level now somewhere in the skyscraper, and we have suppressed this into our subconsciousness, it is still happening. We all know what has happened in our life since birth, affects what is happening in the now. We have inherited all of these emotions, both from our ancestors and our past lives as well. And if we don't know where we got our emotions from and what to do with them, these same emotions are constantly going to attract situations which will make us feel bad. However, if now I know that something unpleasant is happening in my life, for example, I have no money and I have no idea how to make ends meet, or nobody loves me, or I love a person, but they don't want to be with me, then I know all these scenarios are consequences of emotions that were unresolved in the past. They are all consequences of my younger self, of everything I thought and felt, and I didn't know I had to do personal work. And everything I thought and felt in the earliest days of my childhood is what I picked up from my mother and father, and afterward from everyone else, naively believing everything they say. And what they told me is merely a consequence of what these people picked up from their ancestors. And so it went on back to the first man. We all carry this energy from a distant past which is here now. And that's why the past exists, because it is engraved in our DNA. This information tailors our life, and everything we observe in life is created from energy that derives from the past. If we aren't aware of something that was unpleasant to us in the past, and if we don't have something to help us work on in it in a way that we can transform this energy, our future is going to be the same as the present. Meaning, if we feel unpleasant in the now, we are going to feel unpleasant in the future. If we grow aware as human beings and realize that we can create our life, we do that by paying attention to emotions and properly working with them. Meaning, if we did not approve of them, now it's time to approve of our emotions and go one step further. Then we can realize that what is happening to us today is energy from our past. It is the energy of all past events in the history of mankind. There must have been a person who lived at some point thousands of years ago that lost itself as a human being. Such a person began to believe they are ego and forgot their true identity, that they are a divine soul. And when such a person started believing their ego is when fears began to dominate, and everything that person did was out of fear. Doing so, their life became unpleasant, and the energy transferred into the next generations until it had reached us. And now there is something quite important we need to know. In the whole vastness of our universe exists a center which holds all possible information of everything that occurred in the past since the dawn of time in mankind. Everything that happened and is to happen to everyone. Everything we can imagine, and even what we can't even imagine, exists in this center. And this center of information is called the Akasha. And all of the information stored in it is called the Akashic Records. Everything that was, everything that is, and everything that ever will be. In Akashic Records exist the transcripts for the whole mankind, for collective consciousness, for everyone who ever was and will be, so to speak. And in Akasha, there are transcripts for each individual, which means in Akashic Records, there are transcripts about your being, your soul, about everything that has ever happened to you and will happen. Therefore, everything happening right now is already written down in the Akashic Records. Aside from what has happened and is happening, in Akashic Records also exist other options which we haven't chosen because we weren't conscious enough to realize that if we think we have to go down a certain path, and we do that because of our programming, because of the way we were raised, because we were afraid to do things differently than others. But in Akasha, there are all different possibilities we could have done if we weren't afraid, if we were conscious, if we did things out of love rather than fear. Therefore, in Akasha, there are endless possibilities of everything we could have done differently in life that we were unaware of. But if we didn't know what we could have done, then that first man who succumbed to the ego and started behaving out of fear, he did not know what options were available to him. If that man acted out of love instead of fear, then our lives today would have been completely different. Our lives today would be full of love, and all life situations would radiate with the frequency of love. And all of us want to change our lives because we are not pleased with something. Nobody wants to change their life if it is plain sailing. But because we are discontent with the situations we find ourselves in, which means we carry an energy that is engraved into us since that first man who acted out of fear. And unconsciously we create our reality and life out of fear or some other unpleasant emotion. And now what can we do about it? Now, if I know that I carry the energy of that first person who, so to speak, did that certain mistake, then I can connect with the vibration of the Akashic Records to bring about resolve. We can imagine Akasha as one huge library which contains all possible books in which all the information is stored. It is not a library in a literal sense. It is a library of vibration, a vibration that knows it all, a vibration that holds all options, every solution we can possibly seek, and everyone can connect with Akashic vibration. Now, if I'm aware that it is impossible to pull myself out of a certain life situation, no matter how much work and effort I put in, then I know the problem is not in me, but the cause is much further away, probably thousands of lifetimes back where someone lost their way. What I can do then is connect to Akashic Records through meditation by beginning to vibrate on the same frequency as Akasha. And the way to do this is at the start of the meditation, you need to be focusing on the heart chakra and allow yourself to feel what is happening inside of you. At the same time, you will set an intent by mentally repeating the desire to connect with the vibration of Akashic Records. It may happen instantaneously, but more likely this will take some practice. Hardly anyone can feel they have connected to Akasha on their first try, but it is important to practice it daily. And when we do begin to feel we have connected to Akasha and we are tuned into the vibration, we can request that the first person, the one that acted out of fear, now becomes enlightened at this very moment. Because if we know that the past is in the now, then we can seek for that person to become cured of fear and to realize they could have done things out of love instead. And that now begins to happen. We can simply choose a happier life for that person and for all the upcoming generations, so we too can receive this energy and all of the options this person could have received if they behaved out of love rather than fear. And that begins to happen now. This way we can heal our past because everyone has roots in the past, and that's why we can't advance in a certain segment of life. We can also seek from Akasha to clarify what is it that blocks us. What is it that prevents us from going further? And then we can heal these blockages in the present moment with love. We can ask Akasha what would love do in such a situation, not fear. And it is important for you to know how we receive an answer from Akasha. The answer will come through feelings. If someone can't establish a love bond with a partner, if someone isn't respected or can't respect someone, they can't do it because they do not know what a healthy relationship is. They do not have felt perception of a healthy relationship. In most cases, relationships were always based on fear of abandonment and material interest. Because of that, there was never pure love involved, but rather something else. Then how can we know that we want love? How can we know that we want to be happy if we don't know what happiness and love mean in a relationship, or even how they really feel? That feeling can be sought from Akashic Records. We can ask to receive a feeling of love and happiness in the now that we would have if we were in a perfect, loving relationship. It is important to share that it's not enough to ask of Akashic Records. How would I feel if I were in a such and such relationship? When such question is asked, we still don't know how to hear our answer if we can't recognize this emotion, if such emotion was never felt before. Instead, what should be done once we ask Akasha is to tune ourselves in the frequency of the answer, not the question. Say, now I intend to feel happiness because now I am in a loving relationship. And then, even if we haven't experienced such emotion, the Akashic Records will provide us with a different option that hasn't been used yet in our experience. This emotion will be given to us clearly and precisely through the heart chakra, and we will begin to feel it. We can't establish a loving relationship with someone if beforehand we haven't had the feeling of happiness and love we seek in a relationship. We can't establish a feeling of material security if beforehand we haven't had the feeling that we are materially secure. That means, through meditation, we can connect with the frequency and ask the Akashic Records that what we feel is missing, but not through demanding, but by stating, I have it now. I have security. I have a feeling of love. I have a feeling of prosperity. And then that vibration begins to come through and grow, and we start to feel it. And when we start to feel the vibration of peace, prosperity, and love, then we can start to expect that in the future, as emotions are seeds that attract outcomes, and this will bring about a new reality as what we want is beginning to happen. Earlier, I mentioned the Universal Center or the Akashic Center, and what we all must understand is that the Akashic Records are in all of us. Nothing exists on the outside because everything we observe in our life is our imagination, a mere illusion. We only observe that what is happening inside us. So if I say that somewhere in the universe, Akashic Records exist, and if the universe is inside us, then the Akashic Records exist within us. We don't need to ask anything of anyone. We don't need to seek anything on the outside. It's enough to know that within us are all options needed for our life. All we need to do is choose an emotion we have never felt, and it shall be given to us. This works, and with time and practice, you will gain answers and the resolutions you have been seeking. Do it, and convince yourself you will have results real soon with the help of Akashic Records. That's when I would love for you to come back and leave a comment telling us about your experience. The first ones always lead the rest. It will help many of us who still need reassurance and motivation to engage in the energy field to manifest and bring about the desired life for all of us, for the better future in the now. Until then, it will help with the algorithm if you can share, like, and comment this video so more of the like-minded can come and join our growing community. Thank you for your time. Have a great now.